Greetings! My name is Drew. You are most certainly you. And this is part 2 of a kids' superpowers video that I started. And it was a little bit too much, I think, to do one, so I went ahead and broke them up. But essentially, what I said in the first video was that as a dad, I quickly realized that a lot of the behavioral stuff, the emotional health stuff that I was trying to teach my kid were things that a lot of adults don't know how to do either. So I realized that the adults that did know some of these things really did go through life with a massive advantage, and an advantage so big that I equated it to a superpower, because it really does make things a whole lot easier when you have these abilities. And I thought, you know what? That's a great way to talk to kids. Let's talk about real world superpowers, and these mostly are emotional health superpowers. So I wrote a list. I thought about making it a kid's book. I never did. Maybe I will one day, but either way, I wanted to get the information out there because maybe it's helpful to one person. Maybe it's not, but either way, I'm going to do it. So if you haven't watched part 1, you can do that or not. I mean, it's not like a storyline or anything, but it's available should you want it. And yeah, I'm not going to put this into like kids book terms, but it will be kid friendly if for whatever reason a kid stumbles on it or you want to watch it with your kid. But let's get moving with the second half of the kids' superpowers. Be vulnerable. This is a challenge for a lot of people, but as kids, it's not super difficult. As kids, we do love with our whole heart as kind of an automatic thing. And then we learn that when our hearts break, that's a feeling that's not comfortable. So maybe we should not do that all the time. Maybe we should, pace ourselves on, how much of our heart we give to a person or a thing or a dream, an event, whatever, because it does hurt. Now, the downside of that is that nothing brings you that amazing, unbridled, limitless joy that you do get when you love with your whole heart. A kid does that. They do it amazingly well. If they've got a toy or a plushie that is just their number one thing, like, yes, if that thing gets lost, oh my God, like there's some scary stuff there. And if you're a parent, you've seen that happen at least 100 times because they love with everything. If that thing that they love gets lost, their whole world crumbles. And yes, that is devastating. That is really, really sad. And it makes you want to not let that happen again eventually as you get older. But my argument is that the love is worth it. I think that the love that happens when you love with your whole heart far outweighs the devastation that will inevitably occur when the good things end. Because, they do end. Things always end. But I 100% believe that the love and the joy outweigh the pain of the loss. And I think it's still worth loving with your whole heart. And I think that's important in being vulnerable. And yes, we do want to protect ourselves. We should not be going and just giving our whole heart to someone that we meet on a first date or anything like that. You do need to be careful with that to an extent. Give your heart to those who deserve it, those who you trust, but don't be afraid to do it. Once someone has earned it, then let yourself go, because that is where just that crazy unbridled joy comes from. And if I'm regurgitating any Brene Brown, that is 100%, likely, because she writes a ton on vulnerability and loving wholeheartedly and stuff. But it's super important and great for the kids, I think. I think that loving something with your whole heart, being completely invested in something, is so important, and it is, to me, essential in getting over life's rough patches as well. If you love something with everything you have to the point where it is very vulnerable for you, then you have kind of ready to go at any time something that can generate a ton of happiness and love for you. And if we have a partner whom we love with every little ounce of our being, that partner can get us through life's worst circumstances. If we have a hobby that we are just completely enamored with, we have that always ready to go for us when we need it, when we need an escape. And those things can be just such a value later in life. But if you don't open yourself up and really commit to taking all that in, then you can still have a hobby. You can still have an effective relationship, but it's not that full version that you would get if you just completely, give your whole heart to it. I tell my son that if your heart hurts, you know it's working. And that's true. But you do need to be willing to put up with the heartbreak to get the love. But I think it's good that we let our kids know that we don't want them to stifle that. And I keep going back to building relationships, right? But being vulnerable is also a massive, massive win and a superpower in communicating with others, especially loved ones. You want to be able to acknowledge things that might be sensitive, that might put you in a vulnerable position. But again, if you are doing this with someone whom you love and you trust and someone that you know cares for you in return, that two-way street is just the best way to communicate effectively. And by having them open themselves up to you and vice versa, communication, problem solving, partnering on just everyday life challenges goes so much more smooth when both parties are equally vulnerable. Enjoy activities you're not good at. Now, frankly, I'm no expert at anything. Even things I've been doing for a very long time, I'm not that great at. It makes me think of skee ball, right? I've never known somebody that was just a skee ball diehard serious person. Now, I'm certain that they're out there because every hobby has one. But everybody likes skee ball, right? You throw the ball, you try to, it's going to go somewhere, but it's the rolling of the ball that's fun. It's sure if you get it into the top right or top left, you're like, oh, wow, I got it there. That's cool. But skee ball is always fun. And I don't think that most of us approach skee ball with a score in mind. Really, it's just a fun thing to do, to throw the ball and roll it up a ramp. So I say approach everything like skee ball. Just enjoy the process. Enjoy rolling the ball up the ramp and seeing where it goes. Because if you tie your enjoyment of any one activity to the end result, then you're really limiting how happy something can make you. It's that finite result that's going to make you happy. The majority of what occurs is not going to be the fulfillment part. The fulfillment's going to be that one little thing at the end. Now, granted, victory is amazing. Beating a high score is amazing. Winning a game is amazing. But fun happens even if you're not the best at something. You just need to acknowledge that the fun is happening and not base the fun on whatever happens right at the very end. A movie can be great even if the ending kind of stinks, right? I mean, we've all had movies like that. We've all had TV series like that. One ending does not make the whole thing bad instantly. No, it's just, it can certainly color it for you. And sometimes you walk away from a movie or a football game or whatever, and you do have that nasty taste in your mouth because you're, oh man, that ending just, But take the time and realize, well, was the majority of that enjoyable? Was the time you spent time well spent, even if the end wasn't ideal for you? And the answer is yes, for the most part, I find. It's just a better way of looking at it. I never thought that pinball could have a very set storyline, but it absolutely can. Pinball games, you can beat pinball games. I had no idea. I was just like, okay, let's make the ball not fall down in the hole. Let me try to use the flippers to keep it open. And I loved it. I still love pinball. And I don't really worry too much about beating it. I'm just like, let me not lose. That to me is enough of a challenge. So it really is in how you frame it. If you approach something saying the only thing I want to do is win, then sure, your victory, if you win, I think will be magnificent. You will love it. You will be happy. But if you do that, you do need to realize that you're limiting just how happy something can make you. And also, if you do something enough, obviously you're going to get better at it. You might have a peak where you just don't get any better, but you will, be okay. You shouldn't just not do something because you're either afraid that you're not going to be good enough at the start of it, and you shouldn't give up on something too quick if you aren't seeing the progress that you're seeing. And a lot of kids do that. A lot of kids are afraid to lose, and a lot of adults are terrified at losing. And if we can get them to that point a little bit earlier where they're like, you know what, maybe I will, maybe I won't, it'll be cool either way. Later in life, when they will inevitably fail, when they will inevitably lose at something, it doesn't just completely overwrite the journey up until that point, because the journey does matter, and what you learn along the way matters, whether it's a game, a sport, or a career, journey. Everything matters. Every little bit counts. And if you apply that toward the next chapter, it's always worth it. balance your pizza. This one is my favorite, and this is one I tell my son a lot, and he's very good at this. So the pizza represents the things in your life that are currently bringing you joy, and the things that you're focusing on, and sometimes the things that you're not focusing on. It really is all just a very simple way to teach your kids about life balance. You've got your slices, right? And every slice is a thing. And with kids, a lot of the times they struggle with making one thing the whole pie, right? And if you're a parent, you've seen this. And letting your kids know that the things that bring them joy should be a slice, something else should be a slice, so that if they lose a slice, they're only losing a slice. They're not losing their whole pizza. And that is a very nice way to just kind of visualize that balance. And then as an adult, you can equate that to work-life balance. You can equate that to, how you're spending time with your family. You can talk about boundaries, because we've all had one thing happen that's just devastated us. And we're like, man, this shouldn't be affecting me this way. What the heck is going on? And then we just realize that's just taking too much of our pizza up. That was like half our pizza that we just lost. And we don't want to put ourselves in that situation where if one thing goes wrong, we're down to one slice. So balance your pizza. It's a very good way to teach your kids to balance their pizza, because everybody knows pizza. Everybody loves pizza. And it works. And I find myself, reminding myself to keep my pizza in balance as well once I came up with this one. But it works. I think it's effective. It's worked for us anyway. Accept feedback. When someone tells you how you can be better, listen. And sometimes that happens coming from people that we don't necessarily care for or respect or even tolerate. But that doesn't mean that they're just automatically wrong. We have to listen to feedback from everybody, evaluate it on its own merit, regardless of who it's coming from, because just because we don't like them doesn't mean that they're automatically wrong about us. And hearing negative feedback about yourself from someone that you do not like as an adult can be very, very hard, if not impossible. So letting our kids know about this early and balancing that, knowing that people that we like aren't necessarily always right, people whom we dislike aren't necessarily always wrong, but every little feedback that comes our way should be paid attention to and evaluated kind of on its own. I think that if you're a kid or any version of gamer, you can look at any feedback as free XP, experience points. You can use any of it and all of it to apply to yourself to level up. Usually we have to go through life and we have to learn stuff on our own to level up, just like a game. You got to go complete your quests, but sometimes it just comes our way. And if it is valid, you should take it, you should apply it, because it will level you up. And even if you know how to do something, even if you know the right way to do it, that doesn't mean that it's the best way. Someone else might have a better way to do it, or they might have just a different way that you can think about. Be like, okay, well, I still like it the way I'm doing it, but I'm going to hang on to that. Maybe something changes with the way you're doing it, or your process changes. You get a new thing, new wrench thrown into your plans. Oh, I remember that other person said that they did it this way. Now I have that. There's always reason to listen, and there's always reason to evaluate things, regardless of who it's coming from or whether or not you think that your version or their version is right. Just keep it in there, and you might need it. You might be able to use it. Tolerate your own reflection. And no, I did not say love your own reflection. Maybe sometimes we will love our own reflection. Yay, that would be great. But the truth is, a lot of the times we're going to go through our life and we're going to have changes, and we're going to look different. Age, weight fluctuation, life circumstances. This is not always going to be the same, and you might not always love it. You might never love it. And our kids are going to go through that as well. We've been there. Our kids are going to go there. And on those really rough days when we're looking in the mirror and just instantly thinking, ew, gross, it's a heavy, heavy lift to tell us, oh no, I need to love myself. So I need to go from ew, gross to I love that. Even on a regular day, going from ew, gross to I love that is a heavy lift, even if you're not having a particularly difficult day with your face. But I think that going from ew, gross to this is fine is a much more feasible goal. I think of those three levels as rocks in a river. So you've got, ew, gross, this is fine, and I love that, as 3 different rocks in a river that has rushing water, right? If you are on the ew, gross rock, you're sitting on that rock, water is just flowing over you. You're barely able to stay on this slippery, gross rock while the river is just over you. And you're going to be sitting in that all day, struggling to even stay on the rock, let alone be able to function and do any other thing. And then really far away from you is the, I love that rock. And that rock is beautiful. It's dry. It's got a sunny top to it because it's up higher out of the water, right? But it's really far. It's really far. If you could get to it, great, but it's really far. But between those 2 rocks is the this is fine rock. And that has some water going over it, but it's got a dry spot too. You're going to get wet. It's not going to be perfect, but you're going to be able to sit on it without constantly worrying about slipping off all day long. So the way I see it, try to get there. You can try to get to the, I love this rock, but you're going to fall in the water. It's going to be a mess. And then you're just going to feel worse about yourself. So realistically, get to where you can get to where you just are at a point where you're frankly not hating yourself. And that's a difficult thing to talk to your kids about. I know, but I think that just having realistic goals about this situation is a smart thing for us to teach our children, because sometimes we just need to be okay with it. And that will allow us to get done the things that we need to get done in our day. And we're not being just constantly knocked off of our rock because we're just wallowing in just, slimy river water. And another good thing about the this is fine rock, it's a step in the right direction. Because at any given time, making that massive leap from ew, gross to I love that is just too big of an ask. I'm not saying that shouldn't be the goal. Like, yes, absolutely, that would be great. But let's let our kids know that it takes time, it takes effort, and it, might not happen, but take the steps you can. Progress is better than, taking a step back. So as long as we're making our way, jumping rocks to the result that we ultimately want, that's what matters most. Just let's make some progress. Let's take some steps. And if the middle is all we can get to, that's fine. Treat yourself like you would treat a friend. It's pretty obvious, self-explanatory, and I'm terrible at it. Many of us are kind, supportive, loving friends, loving family members, loving partners who, when we need to, we will take our loved one and say, yes, you did that thing really well, or like, no, they didn't deserve you anyway, or like, yes, you're beautiful today. We will say the right things because we know and believe that they did do the right things, and we know that they deserve our support, and we know that they need our support. But when it comes time to doing that ourselves, we don't do it. If we have a friend or a loved one who lost a job, lost a family member, something devastating happened in their life, we would be there for them. And a lot of us would say the perfect thing to them. And then the folks that aren't saying the perfect thing, we would still try really hard. So we know how to do it. We know how to do it. And when it's us, we just can't. And I know it's different. It's not the same thing. We can't, I know the term pick yourself up. You can't actually do that. Physically, you cannot pick yourself up. It's not possible. So I know it's different, but here's what I think you can do. You can be your own friend. And in some cases, you might be able to literally just step outside of your mind and be an observer and look at yourself through the eyes of someone else and say, hey, actually, you did do a great job. Or like, hey, you are on the right track. You did make the right decision in that scenario. But what I find is easier is when I think of the folks that do know me well and would support me in that scenario, when I can't actually hear their voices or I can't ask for their feedback and their support, because sometimes it's very difficult to actually ask for that. But I know what they would say. And I think most of us have at least one person in our lives that would unconditionally support us and would say the right things. And in those situations where we can't literally lift ourselves up, we can think about that person, be it a friend, family member, parent, sibling. We can think about what that person would say, or a number of people. Get all of the people you can in your mind that would say the thing you need to hear, let them say it to you in your mind. Imagine what they would say. And these are people you trust. These are people who you care for, and they are people who know you and love you. Think about them, add them up, as many as you can get together in a big group, saying the things you know they would say in this circumstance where you need to hear them say it, and put them up against your one voice that's telling you that you can't, that's telling you that you didn't make the right decision, that's telling you that you're not good enough, that's telling you that you don't deserve this. Put them up against that and give them just as much time and real estate in your head as you're giving that one voice. And I know that's difficult, but this year, in fact, I learned that it's possible. It is possible. You just need to let them have a voice. And sometimes all it is just clearing out space for them. And because the effort of imagining what they would say isn't as great as it sounds, because it's in there already. Like, you might not need to really pull it out, or you don't need to imagine the actual words that you're saying that they would say, because it's in there. You know them well enough. If the relationships are strong, it's in there. But the hard part is giving them the stage, because the stage is usually dominated by ourselves. If you give them just an equal amount, if you say, okay, I've had my say on stage, let's bring up this other crowd, they're going to outweigh the mean voice. That is how you can treat yourself like you're your own friend. And speaking of friends, you don't need to be everybody's friend, and not everybody needs to like you. And a lot of these superpowers that we're talking about have to be learned gradually. You know, you start early, and then maybe eventually when they reach adulthood, they have it. This one, I think, can be learned pretty quickly and be applied in childhood. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't care about other people's opinions and should not try to make friends or put forth an effort to develop new connections and new relationships. What I think I'm trying to say is, when these new friendships don't happen because of whatever reason, don't let them have a lingering negative impact on you when they just aren't meant to be. As adults, I'm certain that we have met somebody that for no discernible reason, we just instantly don't care for. You know, and it's nothing against them. They're just not our type of person. So eventually we're going to be that person for someone else. And that's okay. It's just not our flavor. Me personally, I don't care for Mountain Dew. I've tried it. It's not my thing. I'm not gonna go for it. Mountain Dew is not my enemy. I don't have anything personally against Mountain Dew. I just don't care for it. And that's fine. If you're Mountain Dew, don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. I've got something else. Don't worry about me. There are a ton of other people out there that love them some Mountain Dew. Like, a lot. Go find those people. Let them love you. Don't worry about me. I'm going to go drink my, Dr. Pepper or whatever. You find the Dew people, because they're out there. They're always out there. It's a big world. So find the Mountain Dew people, if you're Mountain Dew, and let them shower you with their affection. And when something just doesn't work, it's not usually because of you. It's just different flavors, and some folks are just like, this is not my flavor, and that's okay. We need to let that happen. Evaluate it, wonder, like, was there a reason? Did maybe I do something? But if the answer is no, then it's just a flavor thing, and that's okay. And the need to be everyone's friend can cross over a little bit into boundary territory as well. Cross over into boundary territory. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but when we feel the need to make sure that a relationship is maintained just because of the type of relationship it is, family members per se, it's a kind of obligation to say, we need to make sure that this is strong, not because this thing deserves my attention, or this thing deserves my love, or this relationship deserves my nurturing focus. Like the whole flavor thing, sometimes it's just not going to work. Sometimes, regardless of who it is in your life, you are just not meeting where you need to meet to establish a good relationship. This can be friendships, but then it can also be relationships like family, what you think are just, they have to happen. But if it doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen. And we need to let our kids know that we all have finite amounts of emotional energy. that we have every day. And if you are spending all of your, limited bit of emotional energy, all of the emotional energy in your reservoir on this one thing that just isn't working, not only are you wasting that emotional energy, but you've got nothing left for the other people in your life that really do deserve it. And we need to make that call. And we need to teach our children that it's okay to make that call sometimes. When you're giving all this emotional energy to avoid, a black hole where nothing is happening, you just got to stop putting emotional energy into it and put it into the places where it does make an impact and where it does bring you fulfillment and brings the other person fulfillment, because we only have so much. And no one is entitled to our emotional energy, which is our love, our care, our affection, our time. Like, that's another thing. Like, kids need to know that no one is entitled to it. People can earn it and you can choose. But just like you choose who to be friends with, you get to choose who gets your emotional energy as well. And that's where we cross into the boundary discussion, right? And this is so hard to do later in life. If we can gift our children the ability to set boundaries, or to at least know what it looks like when something's just not working, then it will pay off. So that's it. As you saw, I did not really compress these into kids' book friendly terms, because that's going to be a lot. I don't even know if it can be done and then actually have impact, because like I said, a lot of adults don't have these abilities, myself included. I'm very, very much working on all of these. So I just wonder, is it possible for a kid's book to really encompass this with just kind of like a sentence or two on each page? I don't know. But, that's why I didn't wait. That's why I wanted to at least do a YouTube video and get the concepts out there as best I could. I know I'm not a writer, but this is what I believe. And I believe these are important. And I do believe that the right person can distill some concepts from what I've shared and make an impact. So even if one of you ends up finding this helpful, I'm glad I did it. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great day and keep being you.